Our crappy culture. So I have to tell you two funny cultural experiences I had over the weekend because they actually speak to something that's going on that is really sad and hilarious at the same time, which is right in my sweet spot. Saturday night, my wife and I went to the Getty Museum, which is a beautiful, beautiful museum, and it's open late at night on Saturdays, which is just great because the crowds are a little less and you can go and see their exhibits and have a nice dinner, and it really is a lovely, lovely place. And nothing I say about it, I don't want to take away from that. But they're having this exhibit called the Renaissance Nude, which is, the discovery of how you make, the rediscovery, I should say, of how you portray a human body in art, right? The Greeks did it so beautifully in their statues. The Romans copied the Greeks. And then as Rome collapsed, you can watch the depictions of the body decay, and you can see their skill disappears. And the terrible thing about a civilization in decay is it doesn't know it's in decay. It doesn't even say. The people who say, well, they used to be able to make a better statue than that, are just the old coots who aren't in with the modern crummy statuary. And so with the Renaissance, they rediscovered these statues, they rediscovered the human body, and they started to portray the nudes. And a lot of these nudes, they started out because it was a Christian culture. They started out with men doing Jesus with his drapery over his midsection and over his loins, as they would say. But also they started doing women, and those got kind of sexy. And some of those were made for rich male patrons who wanted a picture of a sexy girl. And so they would take a biblical story, about Bathsheba in her bath, and they would do this kind of very sexy nude portrait of a beautiful woman. And as these became better and better, they became more and more attractive. So I'm listening I put on that headset thing where you can go on tour, and they had people from the museum talking in the headset about the different artwork. You would go to the artwork and press the button, and it would describe the artwork. So the guy, whoever, I don't know who he was one of the museum people, is saying, "This is a tremendously erotic painting. I very much enjoy it. Just the smooth lines of her soft flesh and the whiteness of her breasts." And you go like, dude, and then you get the woman, and she comes on and she says, "We have to remember that it's problematical that these were men, made by men, for men, and the power dynamic is problematic." This feminist garbage. And all I was thinking was, in other words, the fact that men like to look at naked dames created some of the greatest work that humankind has ever produced, but feminism has created the ability to complain about it. So that's what you get. A little bit of erotic desire in men creates great art, and then the women complain, and that becomes like an artistic movement. And I bring this up because it is so much of the critical facility, so much of the critical speech. I've always talked to the right about the fact that we not only need to make movies and write books and start magazines and get involved in the culture, we also need to create the infrastructure for culture that brings praise to people who do things that are good, who do things that not just are beautiful, but also are beautiful and elevate humankind. It can be even something that looks degrading, like The Sopranos, which actually does elevate humankind by its wisdom and insight into the human condition. Or it can be something that's just immediately beautiful, like Bach, the music of Bach. But the point is, we have no infrastructure to do that. They can praise and damn. So this movie came out called Widows, and I went out to see it immediately because it was co-written. The screenplay was co-written by Gillian Flynn, who I like. She wrote Gone Girl, and I've read all of her books, and I think she is a really interesting satirist. I don't think she's as good a crime writer as everybody thinks she is. I think her plots can be a little silly, but she's a really good satirist and picks on funny things in our time. Gone Girl, if you read it right, I think, is a satire of marriage. So I went out to see Widows, which is about a bunch of women whose husbands are criminals, and they all get killed in a bank heist. This is the opening scene. And so the women decide that they are going to pull off the final heist so they have money, because they're left without any money. So the movie is not good. I mean, it has wonderful actors in it. Liam Neeson is in it, and all the women, every single woman who's in it is a woman that I've seen on TV or something and said, "Oh my gosh, she's good." Viola Davis, who was such a wonderful actress. And they were all great actresses. But it's a completely humorless, thick, heavy look at what is essentially a heist movie. You know, it's supposed to be about it's a bank heist movie with twists and turns. And instead of doing it for adventure and excitement and fun, it is just this heavy social justice nonsense without a single laugh in the entire movie. By the end of it, I was sitting there and I wanted to love it. You know, I like Gillian Flynn and I like crime movies. I was sitting there going like, are you kidding me? So let me read to you something from the Huffington Post. Widows, and also this thing got 90% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics. Widows isn't making much money at the box office. What's wrong with you, America? That's the thing. So these two women, two HuffPost writers, Zeba Blay and Matthew Jacobs, I assume Zeba is a woman, Matthew is a man, they have this thing about it where they say, we're discussing this film, it sort of petered out in its opening weekend because people went to see it, but then they stopped because they saw it was no good. So he says, what the hell? And Zeba Blay says, what the hell? I'm so confused because this film has generally received amazing reviews and it stars Viola Davis and Liam Neeson. What more could you want? Part of me feels that what went wrong was, besides the fact that the Fantastic Beasts sequel hit theaters, that maybe people don't know what to do with a female-led, black woman-led genre film. Huh? What do you think? Oh, yes, says Matthew. Somehow people would rather see a bad Freddie Mercury biopic and a Mark Wahlberg comedy over a star-studded heist thriller that deserves a Best Picture nomination. If there's one thing Widows teaches us, that you can't trust it. I mean, this is the problem with an artistic and cultural infrastructure run by the left. It is all this complaining about the fact that the audience doesn't like a film because the film is not any good. The film is a failure. It's too bad. A lot of talent. Steve McQueen's a talented director. Viola Davis is a wonderful, wonderful actress. Liam Neeson is terrific. And all the women in it, I don't have the cast list in front of me, but all the women in it are just great. It's a bad movie. It's a lot of dynamite that doesn't explode. And so, but because the left owns the infrastructure, it's all our fault. It's America's fault. And because feminists are at the Getty Museum, they're making us feel guilty about the fact that men's erotic desires were repressed into making some of the greatest art of all time. It is an amazing thing. It is just another reminder. It is another reminder that we on the right need to pay attention and need to celebrate something besides G-rated Christian pablum in order to support the arts that tell the real story, that tell the story of life as it's really lived. We should really do it because it's so boring listening to these people. We would get much better art because of it.